Former crypto billionaire Sam Bankman Fried has been found guilty for his role in the collapse of crypto exchange FTX. The 31-year-old facing now more than 100 years in prison. His sentencing is set for March. Joining us now is former federal prosecutor and partner at Bryan Cave Leighton Paisner, Renato Mariotti. It's good to talk to you today. This was a swift verdict. I mean, we're talking just about 4 hours. Any real surprises coming out of this?
No, I have to say, it's really a testament to the Department of Justice, the SEC, CFTC, who threw a lot of resources at this case, indicted it very quickly, just weeks after the collapse of FTX, and tried this case very well. I mean, they streamlined the case, only 7 charges. You've probably seen more charges in other cases, and really tried the case as if it was a garden variety fraud, not focusing on the unique aspects of the case or the fact that it was crypto. I think that was the right move, and you've got a swift verdict as a result.
Why was it so expedited?
Well, there was a lot of resources thrown at this. You know, I was on this network when the indictment was announced, and the United States Attorney thanked dozens and dozens of different attorneys working on the case, many of whom I had worked with when I was at the Justice Department. And frankly, I think this was the administration deciding to send a message to the crypto industry. They were going to, investigate this hard. They were going to prosecute him to the fullest extent of the law. And I actually think there may have been a political aspect to it. SBF had contributed to Democrats. Republicans were making something of that. They were, alleging that the administration was going to go easy on Bankman Fried. And they made sure that that was not the case, and they were very effective in doing so.
You say the administration trying to set an example here with this particular case, but fraud certainly not limited to SBF and FTX. What happens to some of these other crypto cases? You look at something like, for example, Terraform and Do Kwon. I mean, does this sort of open things up for additional prosecution now that the FTX trial is behind us?
I do think that this is going to embolden the Southern District of New York to think that they can handle other crypto cases. I mean, they've already charged and got a conviction in the first ever crypto insider trading case. And my understanding is that the Justice Department is taking a look at that, the Binance matter, which of course currently is not a criminal case. It's currently a civil regulatory case where, for example, the CFTC and SEC have brought charges. But nothing would surprise me at this point. I really think that there is a desire, I think, emanating from Gary Gensler and others within the administration to send a message. They've done it on the regulatory side with the SEC and CFTC actions. And I think they are very, much going to be aggressive on the criminal side as well.
What is likely to come then of the others who were also involved but were not the figureheads that Sam Bankman-Fried were? Caroline Ellison, others who worked within FTX and knew what was going on, but in their own cases, sounds like they may have gotten some type of plea deal so that they would ultimately come forward and provide their testimony.
Yeah, when you're totally screwed and the evidence looks very bad, cooperating with the government becomes a very attractive option. For that, all of his associates there who cooperated, including Caroline Ellison, they did receive cooperation deals. They did take the stand. In fact, I think Caroline Ellison's testimony was very important at the trial. I mean, she talked essentially about how SBF degraded her own moral character, more or less, and sort of molded her into somebody willing to commit fraud. So I think she's going to get a reduced sentence. All of them will. It wouldn't surprise me if the cooperators received single-digit sentences in terms of years. In other words, under 10 years. But I would expect a much, much weightier sentence for Sam Bankman-Fried.
Renato, I'm curious, as a former federal prosecutor, as you look at what has played out over the course of these 4 weeks, and then the last year, really, this stunning fall from grace for Sam Bankman-Fried. Yes, we're talking about fraud on a big scale, but 7 criminal charges, potentially 110 years, a life sentence. Do you think that crime matches the punishment? You've seen other white-collar cases. How does this pale in comparison to that?
It's a great question. The dollar amount is astronomical here. Okay, so just from that aspect alone, Sam Bankman-Fried is one of the biggest fraudsters of our lifetimes. Okay, that's unquestionable. I think in terms of the type of conduct, it's fair to draw some distinctions, right? I mean, his lawyers perhaps will argue, he was not out there. I prosecuted people who were swindling senior citizens out of their life savings, out of their homes. People who were, swindling their own families. He's not somebody who is one-on-one swindling people in that way. But the sheer audaciousness of the fraud, the sheer extent of it is staggering, and the numbers are huge. I do expect him to spend decades in prison, at least 20, 25 years would not surprise me in this case. The judge clearly not a big fan of Sam Bankman-Fried. And the judge will have a lot of discretion here. We don't know exactly what the punishment is going to be yet. You've given a theoretical maximum. The minimum is 0. It's certainly going to be in the decades, whether it's 20 years, 25 years. But any of that is a big fall from grace for him. And I'll just say, Sam Bankman-Fried really feathered his own nest here in terms of, or kind of ultimately dug his own grave, because he had an audacious fraud. And then once he knew that he was under criminal investigation, he did everything wrong by defiantly speaking out, not exercising his right to remain silent, taking the witness stand at trial, lying on the witness stand. He did everything wrong. And I think he's going to pay the price of sentencing.